Hey guys, welcome back to Girls Next Level.
This is episode 4.
Yeah, and I'm nervous about this one, A, because it's about a certain time in our life that wasn't that pleasant, but also because I really want to tell this story to you guys in a way where you can feel the intensity of what we felt. You know what I mean? Because this episode is kind of all about bullying and like the interpersonal dynamics between the girlfriends who lived at the Playboy Mansion. And you have to understand that everything we're going to talk about was a little bit amplified because we lived in a bubble.
Right.
We were in a situation that we were financially dependent on. You know, we were invested in the situation, and everything in our life kind of depended on the opinion of one man. So when you live in that kind of a bubble, any kind of drama you go through can feel amplified.
Yeah, especially because I felt like you and I were there for the right reasons and other people were not.
I love that because it makes me think of like, I don't know who started this, but remember like old seasons of like, I don't even know what it was, The Bachelor or something. There'd always be a contestant that was like, I'm here for the right reasons.
Well, I know that is very debatable, but here's the thing. Like, we actually enjoyed Have Schedule. We liked the old movies. We liked Fun in the Sun. We came down to buffets. We liked hanging out with his friends. We enjoyed going to do things with him. Like, we were actively involved in the relationship and we had Hef's back.
Yeah, we definitely, like, I say what I say now because I look back on my experience and finally feel comfortable talking about certain things and definitely see it with a lot more hindsight. But at the time, I had his back 100%. Like, my attitude was, you know, if you're going to share your lifestyle with me, I'm going to have your back.
Yeah.
And the other girls were really disrespectful. And I think also that dynamic heightened everything too, because then we feel like we're a little more justified, and when we get attacked by them, we're like, wait, why are we even putting up with this shit? Like, we're the ones who are here doing the job the right way. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, totally. And we left off the last episode talking about the hierarchy, and I feel like that's a good place to start right here to kind of just show how the dynamics were at the mansion, because the hierarchy was every aspect of the mansion, from his friends to the girlfriends to the seating at a movie to where you stand in a picture. Everything was based on this hierarchy, and everyone had their spot. And if you sat in someone's spot or stood in someone's spot, even if you didn't know, it was disrespectful and you were deliberately doing it.
Yeah, and you just faced the wrath of whoever spot you were in.
Yeah, and the wrath of other people who like felt like it was disrespectful to do that.
Yeah.
So for us, like, we were talking about how our friendship was blooming and we were becoming closer and stuff like that, but we weren't allowed to sit next to each other. So Fun in the Sun would roll around and there'd be all these empty chairs next to you.
These heavy sun chairs.
Yeah, like they were made out of like iron or something. Like they were metal and big ass chairs. And I was not allowed to sit in the empty pool chair next to you so that we could talk and chat or whatever.
Because if you did, one of those bitches would be looking out their bedroom window and then they'd come storming down when they never came down to Fun in the Sun, and it would be an issue.
Yeah, or they would come down for 5 minutes just to say hi and make an appearance and then go right back up. But God forbid I be in that, or anybody really, but I be in that seat. And like I said, we were, you know, becoming good friends and we had interests and things we wanted to talk about. So sometimes I would just like double up in your chair because they couldn't say anything about that. And then finally one day I just decided, you know what? I'm going to get my own pool chair. And so I bought like this cheapo plastic one, pink and white polka dot over at Target, and I brought it and I plopped it right down next to your chair. And there, I'm not taking anybody else's chair, but I still get to sit next to Holly out by the pool.
Yeah, and I feel like you might be wondering, like, why would they care if you sat in their chair if they're not even going to go down there? But I feel like they were out to isolate me. They really wanted to get me kicked out and to replace me with somebody else that they thought could like get more money out of Hef for them. And when I say that, it's not just me being paranoid, because some of those girls have come out and like publicly admitted that. And I'm glad they did, because now I know I'm not crazy. Like one of them told a story about how there was one time when they kind of like called a meeting where it was like me and those girls were trying to talk about like, yeah, we should all get along. And I would agree because I wanted to get along with everybody too. I'm like, but that girl admitted that in that conversation, one of the girls was recording me without my knowledge because they wanted to catch me saying something incriminating that they could take back to Hef.
See, that is just crazy to be living under those kind of circumstances.
Yeah, when you're living your life and you're living in this one house that you have to be in 24/7, and it's a situation you're not quite ready to leave and you're financially dependent on, and you're living with these snakes who are trying to get you kicked out every single day. Like, you can't trust anybody, you can't confide in anybody, you're constantly worried that they're looking for dirt on you, like they were doing that to you all the time.
Yeah, for sure. But back to the pool chairs and stuff, I think another reason that I wasn't allowed to sit there too is because it also, if I'm sitting there, it points out that they're not there, more so than an empty chair does.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like they didn't want that. Plus, I also felt like they didn't want us sitting by each other. They didn't want us becoming friends or getting closer.
Yeah, they wanted to isolate me so I was miserable. Like, anything they could do to make me get kicked out or want to leave, they did.
Yeah, and I feel like the same thing happened at the dinner table. Like, I wasn't allowed to sit next to you at buffet dinner, and I wasn't allowed to sit on the other side of the Hef, even though there were 2 empty chairs next to him, because if one of the girls came down and I was sitting there, like, it would have been death for me.
Yeah.
And so eventually I just grabbed a folding chair and I pulled it in next to you and Ray was like more than happy to have me practically sitting on his lap in between you two. And I just like was like, fine, I'll just do it my own way. And I know they were pissed about it, but there was nothing they could really say about it because I wasn't taking anyone's seat.
Yeah, and you guys might be wondering, like, how did it even get to the point where everybody wants everybody else kicked out and nobody gets along? Like, wouldn't it be beneficial if you guys all banded together? You could advocate for each other. You could get what you want out of the situation. How did it get this way? Well, I could start with, there was one time when I first moved in, and it was a whole different cast of girls because there was a huge turnover a couple months after I moved in. And they all decided they didn't want to go out one night. So we all banded together in one room, and I'm brand new. So I'm just going along with what the other girls want. I'm just sitting there quietly going along with it. And they called Hef in and they're like, Hef, we don't want to go out tonight. None of us want to go out. And Bridget, I saw the most disappointed look ever go over his face. He's just like, he reminded me of like the sad mask in theater, how they have the comedy and the tragedy mask. And he goes, what do I say to my party posse? Like, he had just been outnumbered. And I think that was the day when he decided these girls are not going to be friends. So you have...
See, I never felt Hef was involved in any of it.
I didn't at the time. At the time, I thought it was all the girls being mean. I don't know why Hef doesn't see this. I'm so miserable. You know, he supposedly is telling me he loves me all the time. Why doesn't he care? But now looking back, and not even looking back from today's perspective, I realized it right when I decided to move out of the house. That was one of the defining factors for me, is I realized, oh my God, it was him this whole time.
See, I always felt like he just wasn't seeing it and he didn't want to take sides.
No, he saw it 100%. Like, this is an old rule. Like, it's probably in 48 Laws of Power. Like, I guarantee you, if I looked in that book, it would be one of the rules in there. It's like, if you're a ruler and you don't want your people to rise up against you, you divide them. I mean, look at this country. Like, we're divided into 2 political parties. Like, that's how people maintain control. So he loved having 2 different factions in the group, because nobody could ever, like, we could never all get together and be like, Hef, we really need money for this. Like, we could never do that. And it worked 100%.
Yeah, well, it definitely divided the group, if that's what was going on, because we were as divided as you could be.
Yeah, it was awful.
There was literally one side and then our side, and there was a few girls that were kind of like in the middle here and there that kind of were able to sort of be friends with both sides, but neither one of them lasted very long.
And the cast of characters is kind of confusing. Like, you guys might be wondering, okay, who's who in this situation? But it's hard to even narrow it down because there was a big turnover. Like, over the years I lived there was like 4 different casts of characters, you know what I mean? Yeah. But we could talk about maybe a few of the main ones that caused issues for us, I guess. And just so you guys know, like, it was possible to not be a mean girl. Like, there were girls in the group who were just kind of got along with everybody. And even if they were friends with some of the girls on the other side, they were still nice to us.
Right.
Like, it didn't have to be that way. But there were like 3 girls that kind of banded together and were really anti-us. Mm-hmm. And there was a dynamic. It was funny. I call this the Mean Girls era not only because this was the time that the movie Mean Girls came out, but we were living with these 3 other girls, and they kind of reminded me of the Mean Girls characters a little bit. Like there was a definite leader, like there was a Regina George, and I would say like Hef liked her the most.
Be sure and check out Girls Next Level podcast anywhere you get your podcasts.